What's up, y'all? Got another more of an audio video. There's a lot of stuff on my mind, a lot of good stuff, a lot of validating things that are giving me a lot of clarity about life. I know I posted a video recently about suffering and how it's important and how it's good to really tap into life and to really go through or reflect on things, because most people in life, they don't really have a lot going on. It's pretty much Groundhog's Day. Get the same thing going every day over and over and over again, the same shit. So if you're lucky enough to not live that life, to live on the other side of the spectrum of that, where every day is different, it's definitely a blessing. I'm definitely counting my blessings because life is always thrown so much at me on a daily basis, and never really gets overwhelming to a point where I want to give up or hope that or wish for something different. But there definitely are some days where I just gotta kind of sit down and really just take inventory and reflect on where I'm at and where I want to go. Today is definitely one of those days where I'm glad so many things are happening. It's very validating. Since we're mammals or we're primates or animals, we have a lot of animal instincts, and a lot of people are finding out, in various different ways how shallow we are as a species. We don't really give attention to things we don't care about. It's not very advantageous to give, attention to things that are going to benefit you in some way, shape, or form. So the fact that I've always gotten attention from pretty much everyone and everything is just very validating. It just keeps me going. It lets me know that what I'm doing and who I am is important. And what I'm working towards is really going to make a difference. Even if I don't see that difference, for a while, or it's going to take, time for that difference to materialize. It's still happening, and it's definitely something I'm grateful for, because like I said, we're animals and we're very shallow. So most people, they're begging for attention. They're constantly doing things to get attention, especially in the age of the internet. So many people are just doing pretty much whatever to get a little bit of clout, it's a little bit of validation, because there's people are starved for it, which I definitely get, I empathize with. But I get it so often that I don't really try to put myself out there to get it, since this comes naturally to me. This is something about me that other people just gravitate towards. And like I'm saying, it's very, very validating. Gets a lot of clarity about how people are and how people operate. So I'm grateful for that. I really am. It's one of those days where you just take inventory about what's going on and being like, hey, a lot of things are going the way that people thought it was going to go. People really are stuck in their heads, really kind of living in their own world and their own reality, which is understandable. We were all kind of told life was going to go one way, especially here in America, and it's going, for a lot of people, the complete opposite direction. And sometimes, depending on where you are in life, that can be a really hard reality to cope with. So for a lot of people, you got to create your own reality away from the one that you're in. And I get that. It's very easy to do that. A lot of people do that. We all kind of are living our own escapist life in a way. But it can be dangerous if you stay there and then kind of allow that reality in your head to kind of actually to believe those thoughts, and to believe what's going on in your conscience, when it isn't really based off of reality. It's kind of based off of how you feel. Because at the end of the day, there still is a natural order to things. You can't really just do what you want to do because of how you feel. We got to share this planet with everybody else, all the other beings and living things. And you just can't be like, oh, I feel this way, therefore I want what I want. I mean, you can, but just don't expect everybody else to agree with you, at least not in the long term. If you do wrong by other people, you do wrong by yourself, in the short term, you can definitely get away with it. But in the long term, you're always going to take inventory for the things you do and for who you are. So you gotta definitely make sure that you're doing everything that you can to benefit your future self, let alone your present self. Not putting yourself in a position to be like, oh shit, I did this, this, and this. And I justify it because of how I felt and what was going on in my current life. Now, I put myself in a position to where I'm not going to be able to be the person who I want to be because of the person who I wanted to be, or the person who I thought I was, or more accurately, isn't who I actually am. And it's going to cause a lot of chaos in your own life when you're constantly fighting yourself. I see a whole lot of that every day. People fighting themselves, people just not happy about who they are and where they are in life. People are very insecure. People are constantly comparing themselves to others when they should mainly be competing against themselves. And that's the only person that really matters at the end of the day when it comes to that competition. But so many people just want to compare themselves to other people that they really shouldn't be doing. But it's part of the human condition as well. It's a lot of things that I kind of reflect on is how people get to this point, Not something I can really empathize with too much, or at least sympathize with, because that isn't my reality, I don't really compete against anybody other than myself because there just aren't too many people who are on the same wavelength as me. Not saying that to brag, it's honestly kind of lonely when you just know you're just not surrounded by like-minded people. I'm never alone, but I do feel lonely a lot of times because it's just hard to find people who just see the world similarly to you. They're out there, and I've definitely met them, and I will definitely continue to connect with them and join back with them when all of my projects are dealt with. But it's definitely very lonely when you're very set apart from other people and you're trying to make the best of that situation. And it's difficult. It really is. It's hard to get past the fact that there just aren't that many people who just see things the way that you see it. And the way that you see it isn't really of your own doing. It's just kind of who you are. You were born with this vision. But you just gotta make the best of the whatever situation you were dealt with. That's why I kind of don't get mad at people anymore for being who they are, and that's all they can be at the end of the day. Can't really hold too many grudges against them. Gotta forgive them at the end of the day because they give you clarity about who you're not and who you didn't end up being. So I definitely have some gratitude for that, having that opportunity to seeing, how operating in this world with anger, with cruelty, spite, jealousy, envy, where it leads to people long term, short term they can always cope. But long term it's always going to come back and really keep you, put barriers in front of you. And that's not the way I want to live, at least. So doing these inventory days and being very grateful about being someone who is constantly being validated is a blessing because so many people are starving for this type of treatment, this type of attention. I've always gotten it my whole entire life for merely existing. It's not even something that I've done. So I kind of blame myself a lot of times where I would get negative attention from people. or at least something that could be perceived as negative, and I'll always think I did something, but it's like, no, so many people have done way worse things than me, and they haven't gotten half of the attention that I've gotten for just existing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's never a personal thing. It's just who I am in comparison to everybody else. So it's gonna make the best of that and use that to my advantage, which I am doing. I've always done subconsciously, but now I'm accepting things for what they are. Now I'm actually doing these things more consciously, just so I can get more benefits for myself and for the vision that I'm trying to make for the future. Since I'm so gifted in a lot of areas, I kind of owe it to everybody around me to use those things to better everybody else, because life is bigger than ourselves. We can allow our egos to blind us and to make us feel like we are the most important person in the entire planet. That's not how we got here. That's not how we evolved. And evolving is very important. I'm going to make a video about evolving and how that is essentially what we're here to do. At the end of the day, is be better than we were yesterday, every single day. That's the main goal. And so many people can evolve, and I want to get into that in a different one, but it's unfortunate, but that is kind of how life is. At least that's how humans are. A lot of us are very, very far off from where we started, and we kind of mutated into something a little bit different, and we're dealing with it now. So it is what it is, but kind of going on a different tangent right now. But it's just another one of these audio vids where I just want to get some of my thoughts out there, and while also keeping that optimism up there, because I know negativity is like the number one thing right now. People just want to be negative. The vast majority of people on this planet are very, very negative, and it's just like, I get it, but man, we just need a little bit more optimism, or this planet is doomed, which I know it's not, but it's just, we're going through a lot of growing pains. We're all evolving, and well, a lot of us are evolving, but many of us aren't, and people are being left behind, and they're very, very bitter about it, which makes sense. So many people want to move on from what this is, what this reality is, and what culture is going on with our politics, our economy, relationships. All that stuff's evolving and changing for what it traditionally was. And a lot of people are very upset because they were lied to. They thought that this was it. How we did things, with traditional relationships and traditional jobs, the traditional economy, the traditional politics. All those things are actually not needed anymore. We can actually move on from these things and make something better. There's so many people that have invested so much of their lives into those things, and now that they know that they've been pretty much lied to, there's a lot of anger right now. So I definitely get that. But at the same time, you can't constantly just be tapping into your emotions and just lashing out at people and expect things to change. You got to really, really be mad at yourself first and do that reflective work. But most people aren't like that, so you just kind of have to do those things for yourself and hopefully lead those people into a better society, into better mind frame. That's all you can do. Can't change people. People aren't going to change. Most people aren't, but you can at least be optimistic about it. Hopefully you can change 10, 15, maybe even 20% of them. And the rest of them, you just got to let them be who they are. So at the end of the day, I always say I don't believe in free will. So the script's already out. A lot of us just don't like the characters we were given, which is understandable. But things are what they are. You can't really keep the wind from crashing up against the trees. You can't keep the waves from crashing against the shores. There's a natural order to things, and you can't really go against it. You can try to, as much as we try to as humans. We always think that we can control nature, but we truly can't. We're a part of it, and that fallacy is what gets us in trouble, especially here in America. We cannot control nature, no matter how much we try. But yeah, this is some of my thoughts I wanted to get out. I'm gonna have another no more traditional video coming out pretty soon. But hope y'all doing well. But better days are definitely on the horizon. So stay optimistic because yeah, this can't last forever. People are very mad that their empires are crashing down, but all empires have to come to an end. So this is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a lot of death of a lot of traditional values and ways and beings right now, and it's for the best. Truly, it is. So I'm embracing it. I hope y'all are too. Take it easy.